Knitting techniques. How to knit the knitted cast-on. English style, left-handed. To download a guide with our 5 favorite tips to improve your knitting right now, visit newstitchaday.com/5knittips. For this tutorial, you'll need the following materials: a pair of knitting needles, and a ball of yarn. A special thanks to our sponsor Lion Brand for providing today's yarn. Today we are using their Lion's Pride Woolspun, available exclusively at Michael's Craft Stores and lionbrand.com, in the color Taupe. The knitted cast-on is a method of beginning your work. It's a way of attaching stitches to your needle so that you can continue knitting from them. Now the nice thing about the knitted cast-on is you actually knit the stitches onto your needle. So if you're a beginner who's trying to learn how to knit, this is my favorite method because it teaches you the knit stitch as you are casting on your stitches. So you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's also a pretty easy method of creating your stitches. So you don't have to measure out yarn or anything while you're casting on. You can continue casting on into infinity if you needed to, and you don't have to mess with the long tail of something like the long tail cast on where you have 2 pieces of yarn that you're trying to measure out and you might run out of. This is also a method that you would use to cast on in the middle of your work if you're doing something like a buttonhole. So let me show you how we do this technique. Alright, step 1, we are going to make a slip knot, and we will place that onto our needle. Then for step 2, we are going to insert our working needle into the slip knot going knitwise. Okay. For step 3, we're going to yarn over our working needle and draw the yarn through. And for step 4, we're going to pull some slack out on that stitch and place it onto the working needle, like so. And then we will just tighten that down. Okay, so we're going to repeat this from step 2. So we're going to insert our needle into the first stitch, yarn over and draw through. And instead of transferring the stitch like we would for a normal knitted stitch, again we'll draw through some slack and place that onto our main needle and tighten down. Let's do that for you one more time. Again, this is very much just like the regular knit stitch, except that we don't transfer the stitches, we place that extra slack onto the main needle and create a new stitch. Now, what I like to do, rather than when I'm pulling this slack out and placing the loop and removing it, I just tighten it down with my needle still in the stitch. Now the reason why I do this is 1, to save time so that I don't have to keep inserting my needle, but 2, this also makes the edge a little bit more loose, and I can tighten this down without having to worry about my cast on being too tight. Okay, so if you're someone who has problems with a really tight cast on, this might be a really good method for you to try out. Now one more thing I want to point out is when you're pulling out the slack on your needle, I generally place my needles parallel, pointing the same direction, and then insert my working needle into the loop when I'm tightening it down. Now if you wanted to, you could place the yarn on with the needles facing each other. That's not going to make a big difference, but you should pick one way and just do that. You shouldn't alternate or go back and forth from one method to the other. Pick one and just keep doing that. Okay, so that's how we do the knitted cast-on. Hey, I'm Johnny Vasquez, founder of New Stitch a Day and your teacher for this tutorial. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to learn from us. If you'd like to see more videos just like this, we produce new content every single day, hence New Stitch a Day. You can click the subscribe button so that you don't miss a single stitch. And if you click one of the links to the side here, you can see the previous stitch in our series or the next stitch in our series.
And if you click this link, you'll be able to see one of my favorites. And don't forget, you can also download a PDF with the written instructions for this tutorial by clicking or using the URL link that's on the screen. Again, I want to thank you so much for learning with us, and I hope that we've helped make your knitting and crochet skills a little bit better today. Yarn on!